Welcome. You're watching the weekly report on Global Plus News. This week, the world watched as tensions escalated in the Middle East, and a major summit in China challenged the Western order. Meanwhile, back here in the U.S., new economic shocks and political battles are rocking the White House. We've got it all covered. Stay with us and be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay on top of the latest events in the U.S. and around the world. International headlines. We begin in China with what some are calling the formation of a new axis of confrontation. The 25th summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, was held in Tianjin, China. Western media has dubbed it the Summit of the Axis of Turmoil, with leaders from Russia, Iran, Turkey, and for the first time, North Korea in attendance. The main agenda, creating financial and political institutions to serve as an alternative to the West. A meeting between the leaders of China and India drew particular attention amid their recent trade wars with the United States. American media outlets see this as a direct challenge to the G7 and an attempt by China to rally countries dissatisfied with Washington's policies. Meanwhile, a high-profile humanitarian mission is now on a collision course with Israel. An international freedom flotilla of 20 ships has departed from Barcelona. On board are humanitarian aid and hundreds of activists, including renowned climate activist Greta Thunberg. Their stated goal is to break the Israeli naval blockade of the Gaza Strip. The event has sparked a massive reaction. Israel has stated it will not allow the flotilla to reach its shores, raising the risk of an international incident at sea. And in Europe, the EU is preparing what it calls a trade bazooka in response to President Trump's latest tariffs. The European Union is threatening to use an unprecedented anti-coercion instrument in retaliation for new U.S. tariffs, particularly on Indian goods that also impact European supply chains. Brussels is considering significant duties on American products, from technology to agriculture. U.S. business publications are now warning of a full-scale trade war, not just with China, but with one of its closest allies, Europe. Top stories across the U.S. Now to our top stories here at home. First to Minneapolis, where a tragic school shooting has led to a federal takeover. Following the shooting at Annunciation Catholic School, President Trump announced he is placing the city's police department under federal authority and deploying the National Guard to combat a surge of lawlessness. The decision drew immediate fire from the mayor of Chicago and civil rights advocates who accused the administration of overstretching its authority and using the tragedy to assert federal control over Democrat-led cities. And in Washington, the conflict between the White House and the Federal Reserve is deepening. Tensions flared this week between President Trump and members of the Fed's board. The administration accused board member Lisa Cook of sabotaging its economic policy and has initiated proceedings to remove her. Financial analysts and the opposition see this as a direct assault on the independence of the U.S. central bank, warning it could undermine confidence in the entire American financial system. And President Trump is hitting India with a major tariff strike. The Trump administration announced it is raising tariffs on a wide range of Indian goods to 50%, accusing Delhi of unfair trade practices. It's the most aggressive protectionist move against India in decades. The news sent immediate shockwaves through the markets. India has already declared it will not bow down and is preparing a harsh response. Experts are warning American consumers to brace for significant price hikes. News from Canada. Turning to our northern neighbor, where a surprise visit to Ukraine is making headlines. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney made an unannounced trip to Kyiv on Ukraine's Independence Day. He announced a new $2 billion military aid package that includes armored vehicles, drones, and ammunition. U.S. media notes that Canada is taking an increasingly active role in supporting Ukraine, with heavy discussion around Carney's suggestion that Canadian troops could be sent to Ukraine if a ceasefire is reached. Canada is also teaming up with Germany on a critical minerals deal. Amid the U.S. trade wars, Prime Minister Carney signed a strategic agreement with Germany to supply critical minerals essential for high-tech manufacturing. The move is seen as an attempt to reduce dependence on China and other unstable markets. This step is being framed as part of a broader Western strategy to secure supply chains and strengthen economic ties within the alliance. And a controversy is brewing in Montreal over a new diversity policy. The Montreal city government introduced a new diversity, equity, and inclusion program, sparking sharp backlash from community groups. Critics accuse the city of ignoring key issues, particularly the fight against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. The local story has gained traction in American media as an example of the growing difficulties and polarization surrounding the implementation of DEI policies across North America. Global conflicts. Now for an update on the world's most active military conflicts. In Ukraine, Russian forces have intensified their push in the east, particularly on the city of Pokrovsk, a key logistic hub for the Ukrainian armed forces. The fall of this city could severely complicate Ukraine's defense along the entire eastern front. U.S. military analysts are commenting on the situation with alarm, noting it comes amid delays in Western aid deliveries. In the Israel-Gaza conflict, Israel has declared Gaza City a full-scale combat zone and intensified its bombing campaign. This week, the IDF confirmed it killed Hamas spokesman Abu Ubaidah, as well as the Houthi prime minister in Yemen, during a strike on Sana'a, a major escalation. The U.S. and international organizations are expressing grave concern over the massive number of civilian casualties, warning that the killing of Houthi leaders could trigger a new wave of attacks in the Red Sea. And in Sudan, a humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding. The UN and Human Rights Watch are sounding the alarm over the city of El Fasher, which has been under siege by the RSP for more than a year. Dozens of civilians were killed this week, and hundreds of thousands are on the brink of starvation, forced to eat animal feed. U.S. media is covering this as one of the most brutal and forgotten wars of our time, urging the UN Security Council to take immediate action. U.S. politics. Back in Washington, President Trump has tapped Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead a radical overhaul of the nation's healthcare system. The president has officially granted the head of Health and Human Services broad powers to completely rebuild American healthcare. Kennedy is well known for his criticisms of pharmaceutical companies and vaccine mandates. The decision has sent shockwaves through the medical community and the Democratic Party. The Washington Post writes that Trump has unleashed Kennedy, which could lead to radical and unpredictable changes in the industry. Meanwhile, Republicans are pushing what the president calls his one big, beautiful bill. Republicans in Congress are actively advancing a massive spending bill passed this week. They were positioning it as the largest ever injection into the economy and a major boost for the working class. Democrats, however, are fiercely criticizing the bill, calling it a giveaway to corporations and a dark day for the country that will only worsen inflation and social inequality. And finally, a headline from The Guardian this week claims, "Chaos in politics has one constant: Trump's interests." Influential American and British publications have released analytical articles arguing that all of the White House's domestic and foreign policy, from tariffs to appointments, is dictated by the president's personal and business interests, not a national strategy. This is shaping a persistent media narrative being actively used by Trump's political opponents ahead of the midterm elections. Financial news. Now for a look at your money. Inflation is accelerating again, and markets are tumbling. This week's Core Personal Consumption Expenditures Index, or PCE, a key inflation gauge for the Fed, showed a 2.9% year-over-year increase, higher than forecasts. The news dashed hopes for a swift interest rate cut. But on Friday, the S&P 500 and NASDAQ indexes saw a significant drop as investors fear the Fed will be forced to keep rates higher than expected. It was a rough week for tech giants, with shares of Nvidia and Dell taking a nosedive. Nvidia's stock fell 3.4%, while Dell's plunged nearly 9%. The reason? Statements from the companies about rising costs for producing AI components and intensifying competition. This came as a cold shower for the market, which has been riding the recent AI hype. Investors are now starting to take a more sober look at the sector's actual profitability. And as the U.S. imposes new tariffs, India is vowing to retaliate, putting businesses on edge. India's Commerce Minister stated the country will not bow down and is preparing symmetrical measures in response to the 50% U.S. tariffs. The retaliation could affect American tech companies, agriculture, and the service sector. U.S. companies with manufacturing or large markets in India are expressing deep concern. Experts warn this could become the new flashpoint in a global trade war. Sports. Finally tonight in sports, the U.S. Open is heating up. At the U.S. Open, world number ones Iga Swiatek and Carlos Alcaraz have confidently advanced to the next round. But the real drama was a controversial match between American Taylor Townsend and Yelena Ostapenko, where Ostapenko accused her opponent of being uneducated, sparking an uproar from the crowd and the press. Tennis media is buzzing not just about the gameplay, but about the growing tension between players on the court. And it's kickoff time for college football. The NCAA season has officially begun, and in the U.S., it's just as big as the pros. In the opening game, top-ranked Michigan secured a decisive victory over New Mexico, making it the biggest sports event of the day for millions of Americans. The start of the season is a massive cultural event in the United States, generating billions in revenue and capturing immense media attention. And a blockbuster trade is shaking up the NFL. Just before the start of the season, a sensational trade went down. One of the league's best defenders, Micah Parsons, has been traded from the Dallas Cowboys. The move came as a shock to fans and experts and could dramatically shift the balance of power in the league. Sports channels like ESPN have dedicated hours of airtime to this breaking news. And we'll end tonight with a look at the world of celebrities, from a dream engagement to courtroom drama. First, a love story becomes a reality. Taylor Swift and Kelsey are engaged. This was undoubtedly the biggest news in show business this week. The pop superstar and NFL icon announced their engagement with a joint Instagram post, cheekily captioned, "Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married." The news went instantly viral. The American press is calling it the America's royal engagement, and jewelers are already analyzing the unique design of Swift's ring. Next, a high-profile court case. Cardi B took the stand this week, exclaiming, "I did not touch her." The rapper testified in an assault case filed by a security guard in 2018. The plaintiff alleges the star spit on her, insulted her, and scratched her during an argument. Under oath, Cardi B insisted the conflict was purely verbal. The trial has drawn huge media attention, with every detail of her testimony and courtroom attire under scrutiny. And finally, a TV star has been found guilty of covering up a fatal crash. Australian TV host Matt Wright, star of Netflix's Wild Croc Territory, was found guilty of attempting to pervert the course of justice. The court found that he lied to police and tried to falsify records after a 2022 helicopter crash that killed his colleague. The case shocked viewers worldwide who knew Wright as a hero naturalist, with U.S. outlets like CBS News focusing on the fall of his fearless adventurer persona. He now faces prison time. This has been your weekly report from Global Plus News. Subscribe to our channel to stay informed on the most important events in the U.S. and around the world. Thanks for watching.